but we don't talk about the jobs part. Reminds me of Ossie Davis, who preached at my church when I was pastor at the Riverside Church, and asked him to turn in his topic. He didn't turn it in. So when he stood up on Sunday morning, he said, "What I want to talk about today is what happened to the jobs." So I want to ask you to do something. We'd like to ask you to gather the religious leadership of Boston, not just Christian, to hold an event. And if there's already one planned, then there are 3 or 4 quadrants of the day. Find enough, either to be sunrise service, breakfast, lunch, dinner, or midnight snack. To hold a death day celebration. The birthday celebration has been largely watered down to be more congenial to a wonderful time of gathering, usually lacking the radical demands of justice that were at the heart of his movement. I'd like to ask you, Reverend, and your colleagues, see if you could organize an event in Houston on his death date. And that's going to be April 4th. And try to remind the people as you gather them to plan it. I would hope that this choir and some other choirs might be a part of it. If they already got a gig somewhere, fly out back. Ask them, did King die while pursuing racial integration? We know he did that a lot, but he didn't die for that. Nor did he die in regards to his protests against the war in Vietnam. He gave the speech at our church, Riverside, A Time to Break Silence, 1 year before his assassination. But he did not die for that. He died in Memphis, Tennessee, seeking to help sanitation workers receive a just wage, to have the opportunity to unionize adequately, to express their concerns regarding the work they were doing. Several of their workers had just died because of faulty equipment on the trucks. And Mayor Loeb and those who were in charge would not grant them the opportunity to address this issue. Therefore, they were striking. Dr. King died. And when you're looking at legacy, you tend not to overlook what were they doing last. What was the crowning expression of his concern? The speech of been to the mountaintop came in relationship to working for jobs. Now, if this were a black church, I'd ask everybody, so y'all have to help me up there. Then everybody say jobs. If you, on April 4th, could have an interfaith service on the death day. The birthday has almost been co-opted by domesticating sensibilities. Maybe the death date has got to be where we once again raise the issue of jobs. Jobs. Dr. King, actually, this was so out of century. He was asking for full employment at the guaranteed annual wage. Almost sounds, what? Somebody can ask that? No wonder they killed him. I would hope that we be aware that the issue about jobs is not even simply about unemployment, but it's about underemployment. Working your fingers to the bone, and yet not enough to buy milk for the baby, to pay the rent, to make any kind of tuition possible for the children that must be sent for. It is not even the issue of unemployment or underemployment. I'm getting ready to do a work with a member of our faculty at the Melbourne School of Public Health at Columbia University with respect to analyzing the toxicity that comes from alienating work. We think more people die from working, getting up day by day, going to work that they can't stand. And the revulsion inside the body creates an energy inhibiting toxicity. And that they die sooner than they were intended because they can't quit the work. Livelihood demands it, but they hate it. Alienating work is deadly. So the issue of jobs is not just who got it, but the quality of job and the adequacy of the remuneration for the jobs. That's what it's all about. So if I'm going to stand up here and preach and start my sermon asking you all to form the largest gathering you could possibly put together in the most propitious setting, I ought to have a gospel basis for it. Well, that's why I asked him to read from the story of the prodigal son. Boy, what an introduction to a sermon, huh? So let me say why I think this is the right text. This is the right text. The parable of the prodigal son. And I have preached a number of sermons about it. And I shared with your pastor, actually, I have, on this sheet of paper, I have 40 different sermon ideas that I have gotten from the prodigal son. Though even in mentioning that, I'm reminded of this pastor who was going to do a 4-part series on the prodigal son. And around the time he got to the 4th one, the deacon said, "You know what, pastor? Sometimes I wish that boy had never come back home." But the thing I want to mention from the prodigal son is all these years, why did I overlook that the parable is about work? It's about work. This is how I came to it. When you read the text that says there was a son that asked for his portion of goods that falleth to him, and his father divided the substance with them, he went into a far country not many days later, and there wasted his substance in riotous living. And at the time a famine rose in the land, and he began to be in want, and nobody gave him anything. And he hired himself out. Hired, there's a word. See, that's about work. I overlooked it for 50 years of preaching. Hired himself out. And the problem is he was already hired. He was already a worker in a great legacy with his own father, as the story would be told. But he hires himself out, and somebody gives him a job that is alienating for any Jewish boy to find himself feeding swine, but much less even getting so hungry he's almost willing to eat with the swine. And nobody gave him anything. That's where the text says. But when he came to himself, and I've always been interested as a pastor in knowing what was the energy that brought metanoia. What was it that made him come to himself? What was it that all of a sudden clicked? What was the aha? What was the eureka? What was it that was that powerful? And that's why I've entitled my sermon, "An Image with the Power to Heal America." There it is. He said, "How many hired servants